Hello! Today I will be making a instructional video on how I use the Synthstrom Deluge together with my effects pedals. I'll be showing two methods. One, which I think is maybe the most handy and the most streamlined way of utilizing this sort of setup, where I use the send return of a mixer together with the Deluge. The other way I'll show is just the Deluge together with effects pedals. So for this first method to work, there are a couple of things that you will need. You will need a mixer with an actual send return, as well as a two-track input, or tape input, I think it's sometimes called. You'll recognize it with these white and red connectors there, or phono inputs as they're also called. You will also need a mixer that has options as to where to send your main, whether or not you want to send the main output to your monitor or not, and also where to send your two tracks, if you want to send it to the monitor or if you want to send it to the main. This is very important for it to be streamlined. There are ways you could make this work with just a mixer with a send return without these options, as long as you have separated headphones and main outputs. But I'm not going to go into that. I think that's a bit finicky. I think this method is just a lot more streamlined for actual usage. Just a couple of quick things about how I got things connected. I've got the main output of my mixer that is going straight into the line in of the Deluge. That means all the instruments that I have connected here are being fed straight into the Deluge. Then I've got my main output of the Deluge, the stereo pair, being fed straight into the two-track or tape input. Then I've got the two-track set to monitor, or being sent to the monitor. I'm not monitoring the mains, and I'm not monitoring and I'm not sending the two-track to the mains. I've also, and I always do this, because I use a lot of audio with my Deluge, I'll use my Deluge as sort of a live looper and audio arranger for the most part, as well, of course, as a sampler and drum machine. I think it really shines as a arranging tool and songwriting tool for using live audio. And for that, I always have, on top here, I have as you can see, a audio 1, just an audio track that is set to stereo with this little dot, which means it's stereo set to monitor. Most of the time, I'll just sort of scroll down, so I can't really see that. That's just like a dummy audio monitoring track. And I'll often have the volume cranked just a little bit higher, just so that the stuff that I'm monitoring is just a little bit higher than what's being played back. It's just for it to be easier to listen to whatever it is I want to play. So as you can hear, ooh, that's big. I've got my rephase, for instance, being just sent directly into the Deluge and being monitored through my mixer. Right now the monitor is going to my my audio interface, but normally I would just have my headphones plugged straight into my mixer and just listening through everything through a mixer, and also then recording everything I make through my mixer. So it's sort of a nice little DAW-less setup. So a lot of the time when I'm playing music, I will just be sending my instruments through my effects chain before it hits the Deluge. I think that is often pretty handy. Maybe I've got my piano. That's nice, but I might want to add some delays and some reverbs and maybe just a little bit of drive. So I'll just send it through the send return. Oh, that's a completely different vibe. Now, you can also do this with the internal effects on the Deluge. Now that I have this sort of monitor and track, I can add some delays. Add some reverb. Which is nice. But the effects in the Deluge, in my opinion, are a bit limited. They also take up a lot of DSP. So there are loads of good reasons why you'd want to use external effect pedals together with the audio tracks on the Deluge to save DSP and be able to have more tracks going with more sort of affected audio without using too much of the DSP. But I think the most common thing people want to do, or you might want to do, is send one of the internal synths of the Deluge through your effects pedal chain. Because since the synths are internal, let's just make a synth track here, you're sort of stuck with these internal effects, which again are nice, but a bit limited. And for instance, you can't really chain things. So say if you wanted to have a chorus and the new grain effect with the that's been added with the open source, you can't do that currently. So with an external effects pedal chain, you could add a chorus and then use the internal grain effects afterwards. I'm going to load up a multi-sample synth because I think they're kind of fun to play around with and a bit easier to make to get to sound nice. Let's just load up a kalimba and use my reface to control it. That's a nice little kalimba sound. And of course I could add the internal reverbs and choruses and saturation effects to it, but sometimes you might want to add something a bit more spice. So what I'm going to do now, and this is an important step to avoid feedback loops, because I have the headphone output of the Deluge going into this input here, the 7 and 8 inputs. So you will need a free input on your mixer for this to work. And in order to be able to listen to the sound of the kalimba or the internal synth sound without creating an audio feedback loop, there are a couple things I need to do. I need to turn off monitoring on the audio track. I need to turn off 2-track being sent to the monitor and instead turn on main to monitor. So now I can still hear my other instruments, but if I want to listen to the the Deluge, I need to of course crank up this input here. That's nice. And that also means I can use the send return to get effects being run into the get effects onto the internal synth sound. So now I've got the send return cranked up. We've got some reverb. We can add some delay. A bit much. If I want to record this, obviously you might want to make something in time. Maybe you want to make a sequence. I normally use the Deluge as a live looper, so what I'm going to do, I have this track here on top, which is just a kit track with some rim shots as a metronome of sorts. And once I start to play, you'll hear that the metronome, or this kit track, is also being sent into the stereo effect chain, which isn't ideal. So if I want to record something with the effects chain and the internal synth, I would, for instance, just make something up. And here, I've got this playing. I can stop the metronome, create a audio track, push record, and once this gets to its end, I'll start recording, and now this is recording. I'll stop both, and now we're hearing this new audio track being sent into the effects chain. And we don't need that because that's a bit much, so we'll crank just the normal volume up. And here we go. Now, in order to avoid feedback loops and that sort of thing, I'm going to go back to the setup I was using. I'll turn off main monitor. I'll turn on audio monitoring, and now you'll see something here. We're seeing a feedback loop happening because this isn't turned all the way down. So now that I turn the track down, I can press 2-track to monitoring again. And now we're hearing what I just recorded, and we can keep making some music. And there you have it. We got some reverb on my voice. A quick and dirty way to use your effect pedal chain with an audio mixer. I hope this is helpful. The next method I'm going to show is a bit more bare bones. That's where you will just have a deluge and some effect pedals, which I think is also probably a pretty common common setup for some people. So yes, stay tuned for that setup. Okay, thank you for watching.